In this daily drop, we're going to be talking about the iPhone 15 Pro and more specifically, working with Apple Log in both Apple's camera app and BlackMagic's camera app. So let's go. All right, kids, I am exhausted. I put on a nicer shirt, but feeling grubby and that I've been kind of raked over the coals. You know, there's this term, the rabbit hole, going down that. Sometimes people say Pandora's box or it's the Wild West out there. And I would have to say that at least in this first couple of weeks, working with Apple Log and the iPhone 15 Pro and testing that in both Apple's camera app and also in Blackmagic Design's camera app, that there's a lot there to unpack, and there's a lot of things to sort out, and there's not a lot of white papers and real nitty-gritty data out there from Apple to help us really understand what's going on. So I'm going to try to be as concise as possible. Stick with me. This site's about education. It's not about showing you all the fancy new features about an app or a brand new product. It's about how we get things done. What I've been doing over the last few days is really trying to understand what Apple Log is. And I'm not sure that I have that much of a better idea yet, but I am starting to figure some things out. So first and foremost, let's just take a look at some footage. I think that's probably the best thing for us to do. Here we are, and this first shot is the camera app, the built-in one for the iPhone 15 Pro. Shooting in ProRes in Log, and whether you want to or not, the app is going to make most of the decisions for you. There is an exposure slider based on their base exposure that they give you that you can basically adjust. And I've done that before, but I left that at 0. And you can see that the app at least does a good job of keeping exposure about where it needs to be. And then when I pull that footage into Final Cut Pro, it recognizes that as Apple Log. It applies the LUT, and you can see the exposure of that image now. Now, 1,000,000%, because we have no control over shutter, and I'm going to show you something in a second, it's changing shutter. 100,000,000% that it's doing that. But I think it's also doing some other things. So now we're going to go over to a base setting in the Blackmagic camera where I'm using manual control. So I was set at this point to 24 frames per second. I was set at a 48th in terms of shutter speed, because that's what I was using when I was outside. And then white balance, I think I just let it do its thing. And then let's go ahead and take a look at what that exposure looks like with the ISO all the way down. Insane. Obviously, you need ND filters, or you need to start adjusting things in the app. I didn't have any ND filters, so I had to start cranking the shutter speed. I got to a 1/4000th of a shutter speed, and I wish there was an in-between 2,000 and 4,000. There wasn't. So it's a little bit under, but here we bring the footage in, and you can see what happens when that built-in Apple Log LUT is applied to that footage. All right, let's head inside now. And I cranked the Molus X100 up a little bit at 40% now, a little bit more output, feed the sensor a little bit more light. And then here's the Apple footage. So this is Apple's footage in Apple Log. And then when we bring it in, and then I apply, or it is by default applied, the Apple Log LUT, you can see what the footage looks like here. Now on to the elephant in the room, Blackmagic camera app. I don't even know where to begin. I'm very confident that this is going to be something that people are going to be talking about. I've found a couple of websites, one in particular which only has 36 subscribers as of the last time I looked at it, called WRN Film. Was the only site I could find, or the only channel on YouTube I could find that was talking about this problem as well. If you go into Blackmagic's camera app, and first of all, take a look at this thing. I mean, if you haven't downloaded it yet and you use an iPhone, download it, because it's giving you a tremendous amount of control over your camera, your audio, just the manual controls that you have. And I think overall, it's, it needs some improvements, but overall, for a 1.0 or a 1.01 release now, which was the one that included Apple Log, Blackmagic has a home run in terms of a camera app for the iPhone. So a lot of great stuff in there, and you can see all of these parameters that you can change. But here's where things get ugly. When you are capturing an Apple Log, you have to load a LUT into the app, which it has the capability of doing. So I downloaded that LUT from Apple's developer site. I loaded it into the Blackmagic camera app, and I applied it with manual control. So if I was not using Apple Log and just shooting with it, no problem at all. So as soon as you load that LUT up and you turn it on, that's when things go haywire. Look at me. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. And I've been working with log footage for years and years, and I have a pretty good idea of how to deal with log and how to expose for log and all of that fun stuff. And after banging my head up against the wall for a long time, that there is absolutely a huge problem right now with the way that Apple's LUT is being interpreted in the Blackmagic camera app. So what you're doing is you are looking at your histogram, you're holding up a gray card, or you might be looking at a waveform monitor on an external device, and you're getting that to somewhere in that 40 to 50-ish range, making sure you're not clipping your highlights, blah, blah, blah. And you just have this weird blown out footage, which is obviously saying you're overexposed when you're not. Look at my lips and all of that weird stuff that's going on. And what you do is, at least for the interim, is you have to have a LUT that is essentially rated at less stops. So the one that I started to use is this minus 1.5 stop LUT. And that gave me a much better indication of where I should be setting my ISO so that I could get the exposure. And in this case, it was somewhere, I believe, at around 300 in order to get something that was in the ballpark. And it's really weird because it doesn't totally make sense to me that the ISO would be that low. Obviously, you want it to be low for the image to be clean, but with a sensor that small and all of the other ingredients, something else is going on inside of the phone. Something else is happening with the processing, because based on my, I'm going to say, decades of experience working with cameras, the math doesn't necessarily add up. But here's the footage. So we've got the built-in camera app making decisions for us. And if we take a look at that log footage, I want you to pay particular attention to the bottom left of the screen. I think that's the place where you can see it the most. This is not LUTted right now, and take a look at that. And where the chart is and in that area, I think you'll see quite a bit of noise there. It's dancing from the camera app. And then here we are with Apple Log applied. And now we're going to jump over to taking a look at the log footage from the Blackmagic camera app once this little workflow was sorted out and I could get my head around it. And here we are applying the Apple Log LUT to that footage, and you can see what that looks like. And now what I'm going to do is just play down so you can see between right now the Apple camera app and that bottom left corner, and the Blackmagic camera app and that bottom left corner. And this is just in log. So this is not with the LUT applied. And now we'll look at them back to back with the LUT applied. This is the Apple camera app. And then here we are with the Blackmagic camera app. And it's pretty obvious to me that the Blackmagic camera app is cleaner. It's considerably cleaner when you're looking at that log footage. So that's interesting to me. If you get your settings dialed in correctly, and hopefully they solve this LUT issue in the near future, then I think there's a lot to be said about this app. I think that for most users, with the addition of a good variable ND system that attaches to those rear-facing lenses, and front-facing, I don't know how I solved that, but I'm sure there's a solution for that as well. For exterior locations, I think Blackmagic has a winner on their hands. But we've all just got to figure out the LUT workflow there. And we've got to get some LUTs that are rated at, -1 to -2 stops right now. And then when the app gets updated, then that problem should go away. And then the exploration begins as to whether or not Apple logs or Apple's log LUT is the one that you want to use. There's already LUTs coming out for the iPhone 15 Pro and log recording. I've seen quite a few up on the YouTubes. What are you going to do? So exhausting, but at least I feel like I have my head around it a little bit more. Hopefully you stuck with this. I hope you did. And you learned something. So don't forget to. And I'll see you on the next episode next week of The Daily Drop.